Hi, I'm Amy Bright with Bright Eyes Arts, and I am outside on this very humid day here to talk with you about project-based learning and homeschooling. Yesterday I talked about arts integration and homeschooling, or just arts integration in general, and defined it. And then today we're going to talk a little bit about, well, entirely about project-based learning, and then perhaps give a few ideas. So I drew from the Kennedy Center yesterday for the arts integration. This is not my original content. I'm just letting you know what's out there. And today I'm drawing from the Buck Institute for Education, which does a lot with project-based inquiry, project-based teaching, project-based learning. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over. I have entirely set up to be the sage on the stage. But this seemed to be the quickest way to get this out. So yesterday I let you know that arts integration is an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate knowledge through an art form. So I think this is where the idea of arts integration being project-based learning is when we say, I'm going to give you an art project to do. And it's a project. And so a lot of times there's this idea that project-based learning is arts integration. And that's not necessarily the case. Can be. I do that a lot. But there's a different definition and sometimes a different approach. So project-based learning, entirely from the Buck Institute, teaching method in which the students gain knowledge and skills by working for an extended period of time to investigate and respond to an authentic, engaging, and complex problem or challenge. They are working on a project. And this project, as they're working on it, they are doing a lot of investigation on their own. A lot of, again, in the context of the classroom, in the context of learning. But there's a lot of, sometimes depending on who's doing it, self-direction. Now, this isn't entirely on their own, of course. The teacher is there to guide them. And the students are supposed to have either a base of knowledge or gain a base of knowledge while they are doing this investigation. So if you'll look at the bottom, part of this is that they are expected to know or to gain knowledge and some key knowledge, I left out understanding, and skills that would be necessary to do this project. So, and again, this can be a question, a problem, question, comma, problem, common, or challenge that they're looking at. And this can be anything from a marketing, like some people develop their own product and then they market it. And then they use the funds to help a charity. We're in a farming community and I'm on a small, soon to be working farm. So let's say, all right, we have an irrigation issue, which is part of what is going to be part of a challenging problem that we're going to be facing. So let's say that my son were old enough to do this, and he wanted to look into how can he use our farm to do his project. And he wanted to say, all right, I want to do the best kind of irrigation method for our location and for the actual layout of this farm. So if you were to look out here, this is kind of the front of our lawn. Right? So this is what we're putting into development. So how can we best lay it out for this specific challenging area? Now, in this, he would need to have some key knowledge from everything from what we need as a farm to irrigation methods of the past, how they've improved, irrigation in this area. Everything from rainfall to zoning, all of these things, all of these key knowledge, all of these skills, how to do irrigation, all of these things would have to go into his doing the project. Now, a lot of times students choose something that they're already interested in and they already have some of these knowledge that they're working with, but they still have to gain some more. And then, of course, it has to be a challenging problem or question. So This kind of comes into like when you do a science fair and you've got these kids who do these great engaged projects, and then you have the one kid, or the 10 usually, and they're like, what if I play music to my plants and they grow? And, they don't even water the plants, so who knows? So part of this is making sure that what they're asking is challenging, that it's actually a problem. It's a clearly defined question that they're dealing with. And then it needs to provide for some sustained, authentic inquiry. Again, this is kind of going back, and this doesn't have to, see, this is where like the arts integration, it's an art project, it's project-based, or, we're talking a lot about science, it has to be science. It doesn't, that's just, usually when I think of this, I think a lot of the good parts and the problematic parts of this are the same things that you face when you have a science fair project. So you have to have this sustained, authentic inquiry when you're looking at project-based learning. And this is the fun part, but you as a homeschooler, this is where it can really work well in your favor. Especially if you have a teen who has some really, well, either way, if you have a teen who has some really highly developed interests. So those of you who have teens who are in ballet, they could do some sort of problem or question along the lines of ballet. Maybe it could be something along the lines of even physical therapy, or developing a sustainable ballet practice for people who maybe have tendencies toward some sort of spinal injuries. Like, how can they develop that in their high school years? Like, look into questions that involve ballet, and then all of the things that would come to with presenting that, which we'll get to later. And in project-based learning, and this is, again, the nice thing about combining with homeschooling, it's the student voice and choice, and that's directly from the Buck Institute. And this can be difficult when you're, like, let's say that you're a teacher and you have 50, 100, 130 students. And you're having to direct these and to keep them on task and really check in. But if you're dealing with students, your kids, and you only have 1 or 2 at this level, right? And even if you especially had 3 or 4 and they really had a similar or coinciding passions that they could work on together, they're directing a lot of what they want this to look like. Now, unless they're in a movie about teens, they're just really already that kind of a person, they're going to usually have to have a lot of guidance from you. But maybe by this time, if they've been trained that way, or that's their nature, a lot of it is you doing guiding and giving structure and providing that structure. But it's the student who gets to choose. So if the student loves science and you're like, I have no desire, you still let them, you guide them in that way, and help them at least with the structure part. Then there's also the idea of it being peer reviewed and being reviewed by the teacher or by you, and revision. So, and this is where, like, sometimes the science fair, I think, probably breaks down, is you have these people, they're all working on this project, and they put it up, and then they're done. And in the real world, especially since now you've got internet stuff going on all the time, when you put things out, they're going to get shot down. Sometimes badly. Well, usually the method is bad. But a lot of times, like, the problems are real. And this is where it's nice for a student to come in and say, all right, and this is, again, where arts integration, that mindset comes in. It's not a finished product. Again, for assessment, for grading, something's got to be done at the end, but the ongoing process can usually be made better. So again, going back to the idea of irrigating this place, let's say that was the project, or we have to do irrigation, and then as methods develop or things change, or we discover something new about the land, or the way it's set up underneath or something, we can go through and we can change that. That's real life. And part of the idyllic, or the ideal of project-based learning, is that they're learning that learning they're learning that learning means something, that it is connected to the real world in a way that helps themselves and helps others and solves problems. So I don't remember who said it, and this is a paraphrase, but the idea of, don't ask what do you want to do with your life. Ask or what they want to be. Ask a person, like, what problem do you want to solve? And that as a guiding question to their life. So maybe I want to, we want to solve an irrigation problem. We want to help small farms to flourish in the midst of encroaching, like, buildings and large, Amazon buying Whole Foods. Like, nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that. But we're wanting to help these people thrive. The challenge is to thrive in a competitive environment. And then if that were my guiding question in life, there are multiple means of achieving that. So instead of saying, what do you want to be? Well, I want to be a farmer, or I want to be a doctor. I want to help people achieve health. I want to help small farms thrive, or large farms thrive. Then in that, there are multiple ways of achieving it, and then seeing that throughout life. And project-based learning helps with that. You have a problem, and you're using all the tools at your disposal to come up with a solution and apply it. And that's the last part. And that's one of the things, like, in my frameworks, when I'm teaching students, the last thing I have is engagement. And in this, there's public engagement. There's the idea that, and a great idea, that the things you bring, that you do, need to help the public, and you need to get them out to the public in whatever ways possible. So online, in public meetings, and this is part of being a good citizen, and also part of growing a good team, that they're having to interact with all age levels and present their ideas to people who have been probably doing this their entire lives. And again, getting feedback or bringing new ideas to this proverbial table. Actually, they're usually literal tables because you're usually sitting around them, not texting. So in project-based learning, that's what you're aiming for. And again, one of the ways that homeschooling can really achieve that is, you have curricula just so you can let you know where you need to touch base. But as homeschoolers, you're not bound to them in the way that a teacher might be bound to testing and dates and things like that. You have this incredible freedom to go out and solve problems, and to have students spending their high school years, as much as possible, almost interning. But using it as, they're not, going to school and then trying to go to work, that they're incorporating all of their disciplines into something, and it could be year by year. This year we're going to study American history and American literature and all this, but kind of our overarching question is, how can we achieve yada, yada, yada? Or maybe they want to be a filmmaker. How can we use all of this to, in the end, produce a film on this limited budget? So that, again, arts integration and project-based learning they're two different things, but they can be used simultaneously or as the same thing. And their end goal is to make the students more involved in taking ownership, charge, responsibility for, whichever word really speaks to you, responsibility for their own education, and recognizing that it's important now and in the future. And also to help them see that they can make a difference right now, instead of in some kind of airy, hazy, in the future, after you've spent millions of dollars on, well, not millions, but lots and lots of money on college, that you can be busy making those choices that are good now, and really not wasting their lives, not wasting those really formative years in nothing. And again, homeschoolers have a great opportunity to incorporate some of these ideas into their homeschool. So, you have the travel aspect of homeschool, ideally. Again, you have these travel aspects. You have the fact that maybe you are working on a farm, so you can make your math meaningful. You can make your algebra is important. Geometry is important when you're doing farm work, when you're laying out gardens. Auto mechanics, the engineering, physics, chemistry, all of these things are really important, but they become important. They feel important. Oh, you can see the mosquito. They feel important when you're having to engage in something that actually will make you money. That's always important. But that you see an outcome that has real meaning. So I hope this helps you in seeing these differences and these similarities. I trend more arts integration just because that's me, and because there's an easy factor to it for me anyway. That kind of having these long-term sustained projects, it's hard to keep up with. So that's a goal. I'm taking on fewer classes, and I'm wanting to do more with a project idea. But there's a lot of design on my end. I tend to want to have more design control over it than maybe I should. But I also want to be able to answer student questions or guide them. I'm getting better about that. Not just tossing out ideas, but saying, like, here's a checklist. Like, how can this help you? So again, I hope this was beneficial. If it was, let me know. And if you have any questions, of course, please feel free to message me or email me at brighteyesarts@gmail.com. Thanks. Have a great day.